up, everybody? This is 22 Tiger Dude here, and I'm here to review the SpongeBob episode, The Original Fry Cook, requested by Daniel Simpson. So the original Fry Cook is about when we get introduced to the original Fry Cook named Jim. He used to work for the Krusty Krab before SpongeBob came along, and apparently he's this fry cook legend. He pays a visit to the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob is very intimidated by him because, he makes better Krabby Patties than SpongeBob does, and, SpongeBob feels like really pretty much like nothing because of this fry cook, and because everyone really acknowledges him like he is this idol, and SpongeBob is worried that he could lose his job at the Krusty Krab. The original fry cook was, it's whatever to me, honestly. The thing I definitely really liked about this episode was Patton Oswalt guest starring in this episode as the voice of Jim. I thought Patton Oswalt did a great job voicing Jim, and it's cool to see him do SpongeBob because I really do like Patton Oswalt. So that's definitely pretty much the biggest positive I have, just hearing Patton Oswalt in this episode. There's not a lot of funny parts. There really isn't. They don't really try to add that many funny moments into this episode, but there's a few times where I did sort of laugh. So there were a few pretty funny moments. I also did really like the scene where, Jim was teaching SpongeBob how to make Krabby Patties his way. I really did enjoy that scene. That was very enjoyable. It's a very limited scene and it kind of goes by quick, but it was still very entertaining to watch nonetheless. I did really like towards the end of Jim telling his story of why he quit the Krusty Krab, and the obvious reason is because Mr. Krabs wouldn't give him a raise, so that's what made him quit the Krusty Krab. So I really did like hearing Jim's story towards the end of this episode. That was really nice. And really, in terms of writing, I thought the writing was just decent here. It's not bad writing or anything. It's perfectly serviceable writing. There's nothing cringeworthy about it, but there really isn't anything special about it either, in my opinion. So with the positives, there are the negatives, and the biggest negative I have with this episode is that everyone, including Mr. Krabs, makes SpongeBob feel like a nothing. Like, really, Mr. Krabs? There have been so many episodes where you praise SpongeBob as being the best fry cook ever, and then this guy, who we have never even heard of once until this episode came out, that he's now your greatest fry cook, when SpongeBob has been apparently the best fry cook that you've ever had. So it's very contradicting right there too. I just didn't like how Jim is getting all the attention and SpongeBob's just really put to the side. No one really acknowledges him, and you just feel bad for SpongeBob, and I just didn't really appreciate seeing that. Really, that's what this episode is. It's just SpongeBob being sad and getting intimidated about losing his job, even though it's so predictable that he's not gonna lose his job. Like, come on, we all know this. And then, of course, Mr. Krabs gives SpongeBob the attention towards the end, despite the fact ignoring SpongeBob like nothing for most of this episode. So once again, contradicting much, Mr. Krabs? Like, really? The episode, like I said, does not have a lot of funny parts, and that would be fine with me. Like, it's okay if an episode doesn't have as many funny parts as another. I'm just saying they're like kind of bored, honestly, because this was kind of a boring episode. I just felt like they didn't really go anywhere with this episode. And then, of course, if Jim is such a great fry cook, Mr. Krabs, or really to anyone, how come we're barely hearing about him now? How is it that all of a sudden we're hearing about the greatest fry cook of all time? And not to mention that the ending to this episode, it was pretty abrupt. It just ends with Jim telling his story. SpongeBob, he decides to stay at the Krusty Krab. Jim wishes him luck and calls the Krusty Krab a dump. SpongeBob's all like, the Krusty Krab isn't a dump, but Mr. Krabs is all like, oh, she's a dump, alright, but she's my dump. And SpongeBob goes, oh, and the episode ends like, what? That's how you end the episode? Yeah, it just went by too quick, honestly, and it just kind of gave me the alright feeling. So overall, I do think the original Fry Cook is just an okay episode. It is average at best. There really isn't anything special about it, in my opinion. It does get kind of boring to watch because there really isn't anything to this episode. And then, of course, it does get contradicting with Mr. Krabs not giving SpongeBob the attention, SpongeBob feeling like he hasn't really accomplished as a fry cook. But, of course, it was great hearing Patton Oswalt guest star in this episode. I really did like that. That's the biggest positive for me. But really, other than that, what else can I really remember about the original fry cook? Like, it's really not memorable. So I'm going to give the original fry cook a 6 out of 10. It's an episode I can rewatch, but really when there's like nothing else on TV. Other than that, yeah, it's whatever to me, honestly. It's just whatever. So you guys in the comments down below, let me know, what did you think of the original fry cook? This is 22 Tiger Dude here, and don't forget that I will always have Tiger Power!